Ms. Alvarez, I would note that Mr. Derflinger quoted Harris versus McCrae in the court, and the court said, quote, "No other procedure involves the purposeful termination of a potential life," and affirmed that Roe versus Wade had created a limitation on government, not a government entitlement. 3 years earlier, the Supreme Court had ruled that the government's refusal to fund abortion placed no restriction on the, quote, right to choose abortion. Your testimony was especially compelling when you mentioned about women's attitudes towards abortion in the coming days. And my friends on the left, oftentimes when they're faced with an indefensible position, try to change the issue to something else entirely, and it's very difficult then to debate the issue in any effective way. Can you tell me how both of those stated concerns coincide with H.R. 7 in your opinion?
If I could clarify, the stated concerns regarding what it said at Harris versus McCrae?
The court's decision, and also women's attitudes toward abortion.
Yes. I mean, the court's decision is very clear. It's established as a matter of law, but I think it also seems as a matter of common sense to many people in the United States that refusing to fund something is not a statement that the government has done away with what is still in this country a constitutional right. And the court just drew that line very clearly. It's mystifying to me sometimes when people make this argument from the common sense perspective. It seems as if they're saying that somehow 1.2 million abortions a year isn't enough, that in order really for us to say we have some robust right of abortion, we have to have an even higher rate than 3,300 abortions a day. We already know that poor women are getting a disproportionate number of these, and that they disfavor abortion more than the well-off, right? We also have minority and immigrant women disfavoring it more than majority American women. And so the idea that it is an interference is problematic. The other statement that comes to mind in connection with this is, you know, if you look at Planned Parenthood, the largest abortion provider's most recent balance sheet, I mean, in addition to the giant amount of government funds they have $500 million a year of non-governmental funding. If it's so important to them that there be more abortions among the poorest women in the United States, I would wonder why they don't follow the example of the over 3,000 crisis pregnancy centers who are contributing private funding to women, about $25,000 per woman per year in the residential facilities, and there are over 350 of those. So that entire argument that somehow a right has to equal funding it, and the funding has to come from the government, it is neither legally supported, nor is it supported in common sense, nor would poor women in particular support that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Mr. Derflinger, I know some states have made their own decision on what to do about abortion coverage on their exchanges. Can you give us an update on what has happened in that regard?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Since the Affordable Care Act passed, 24 states have acted to opt out of the abortion policy on the state exchanges set out by the federal government as the presumptive policy, in which federal funds are used to subsidize plans that cover elective abortions, and then there's a little bit of separate bookkeeping, separate accounting for the funds used for abortion, but everybody in those plans is forced to pay that surcharge for abortion. States have looked at that policy and said, no, we're going to take elective abortions off the exchange altogether in our state, and that policy goes farther than H.R. 7, which only removes elective abortion from plans receiving the federal subsidies. Now, of the 13 members of this subcommittee, 10 of you are from states that have made that decision to simply take abortion off the exchanges, and 4 of the 5 Democrats on this committee, this subcommittee, are from states that have made that decision. You passed the bill with this abortion policy, and your own states have said, no. That's the trend now. In fact, more states than ever have taken this opportunity to actually reach out and say that abortion will not be available in private plans off the exchanges, except in most cases, by supplemental rider. 10 states have done that. So the trend out there in the country is that half the states now have said, no, we want a firmer policy against abortion on these state exchanges.